Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the second portion of tonight's meeting, Public Works Recreation meeting agenda. Note to the public, please turn off all cell phones, pagers, PDAs. I'm your chair, Councilor Trombetta. Any change in orders of items on the agenda? Seeing none. Disclosure of a peculiar interest or conflict of interest? Seeing none. Appointments? There are no appointments. Sweep to number 5. Anybody in the gallery here that wants to request items on the agenda? I see one hand up. Come forward. State your name and address, please.
Good thing you only get 2 meetings tonight, eh?
Sure.
Name's Terry Bell. Live at Manorwood, Smithville. I'd like to address staff reports, 8A, item PW 01-19. You were talking about the decommissioning of the arena. I guess I'm a little concerned because I know there's 4 members on this present council that sat on the last council. They had all the reports that come through dealing with the existing arena versus a new facility. Many reports come in why we shouldn't use the old facility. We also talked about, can we repurpose the old facility? That was also included in all these reports. And at the end of the day, the councilor of that term decided, no, it's not feasible to do it. We're going to decommission it, and at the end of the new facility being built and up running, this one will be torn down. And lo and behold, what do we see from this council? They want to bring it back and talk about it. That's, you know, all them reports are there. They could have been taken by any one of these councilors and read. But you're bringing it back at a cost. It's been acknowledged, staff is at a premium. We don't have a whole great amount of staff, and their plates are full. They've been down this road, and we're going to consume their time bringing back reports that we all know about already. Granted, the new ones may not, but the reports are there for them to look at it. That's what they want to do. I'm not 100% sure why we're bringing this back, but as I read things, and as many residents, I read the newspapers that come to us, and our new mayor-elect, he makes a comment that it'd be a tragedy to waste an opportunity to create something structurally. It needs some work, but it's not going to collapse, he said. It's just unsuitable for an arena. All that was in the report. It talked about us repurposing that and why we shouldn't do it and the costs that were involved in it. Obviously, not everybody read the reports, but it was there, and it's still there today in the same reports. And now we've asked staff to go out and bring them back and show us to them again. Then Mr. Billsman goes on to say he'd like to at least explore whether the structure could be leased to contractors, renovated, operated independently. I'm not sure why we'd want to, as a municipality, fix something up and then lease it to a contractor on a recreation site. That just don't make a whole lot of sense. So in the good sense of the municipality and councilors, let it be what it is and let this old arena be decommissioned. Take the soil. If you want to put something there, look at putting a decent structure up there. Not something that we shouldn't be repurposing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Bell. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, to Mr. Bell, I just wanted, you had asked why we brought this forward, and the decision was made by a majority of the council. It was for information purposes only. As you do state, 4 members of the council were here last term, but 3 of us were not. So it was purely an informational request from staff.
So staff requested it?
No, we requested staff for the information.
So why bring it back to the council? If you're looking for that information for yourself, all you have to do is contact staff and say, hey, can I get the mode reports to have a look at them? And then if you found something, but I mean, this, for me, looking at where we're going and where we're at, total waste of resources, of staff's time and finances. Sorry, that's how I feel.
Sure.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Councilor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. I totally agree with you, absolutely. I will admit that I was one of the ones that voted in favor for the reconsideration of just information. Not being on council before, I was not privy to the, I guess, the available information it is, or I just didn't look hard enough to find it. I have been given it since. I think there's a lot of factors that we were, at least I was unsure about with the, that needed to be considered. And I think it's important to note that we're given, we have a lot of expectations this term, and I think we were just looking for a potential outlet to see if there was an opportunity to generate other income. You know, the obvious way of generating income is raising taxes, which nobody wants. I don't want that myself. So we were just looking, you know, yeah, it might have cost us a few dollars more, dollars that could have been better well spent maybe in other aspects, but I don't think it was a bad investment. As a business owner, sometimes it takes money to make money, and we wanted to ensure that we weren't just passing up on something that could have possibly generated hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. We didn't know that going into it. At least I didn't know that myself until I was given the report, and then I was able to review it and, you know, look at some of the what would be required to keep that building afloat. That being said, there's also other things that was brought to the table, which was breaking the contract and what that was going to cost and the purpose of what that land was supposed to be, you know, with the drainage element of it. And so there was a lot of factors going on. I just didn't want to turn my back on it if there was a chance for us to make some money without having to raise taxes or have to endure something else. So I don't think it was a bad idea to reconsider it. I just don't think we all had, at least I didn't have the information beforehand, but that being said, you know, it's hopefully it's going to be behind us soon.
So with your comments and moving forward, hopefully you learned something from this.
Absolutely, I'm learning every
And I
day.
think what you've learned from it, hopefully, is that when you have a question, you want to know something. This has been going on for many, many years, not just the past few years. Okay, them reports are out there. Excuse me, as a resident, you heard a lot of stuff, seen a lot of things, but now as a counselor, when you got questions, that's why you got staff. Go to them. Go to
Absolutely.
the recreation, go to the building department.
So do
As
you,
an individual, you ask that question.
Through the, hold on a sec, through the, one at a time, through the chair, please, Mr. Bell, and then Mr. Councilor
Okay.
Riley, through the chair, please.
Through the chair.
Please, thank you.
So I'll continue. That's what staff is there to help you. Okay, for one individual, they can answer your questions a whole lot quicker than can, going back and generating all these reports for all of council to know.
so
Through the chair.
through the chair,
It's just,
through you, Mr. Trombetta, through the chair. I wonder, I'm kind of confused because I feel like there might be a misunderstanding here, maybe I misunderstand, but it was we asked our staff to provide us with that information. There was no extra survey, or we did not, from what I understand, we did not hire anybody to go and do an additional, I guess, an assessment. So, you know, just to further add to your comment there, like, we did exactly what you're suggesting. We went to our staff, and they actually sent us the information necessary that they already had from your original
As a group,
20, yeah.
As an individual.
Okay,
As an individual.
I got some comments, if you're completed there,
I'm good, thank you.
Councilor Riley.
Go through the chair, please.
So, through, to you, Mr. Bell, you know what, it was floating around, and just like you in the past, myself in the past, when you want some information, we send it back to staff for some information, just like any other meeting that we've had with you in the past. You're right, we can call staff, but we wanted some information. I myself, you know, and you know this, and maybe some people don't know this, is that when Players Paradise shut down, there's a need for soccer, and you know, we were thinking of an option to maybe see what could be our options, and if we were to just turf the arena, keep it what stated it is, but you know, what if we could not utilize that aspect of the contract, if we can get a credit? There was all those questions. Not saying it's going to happen, not saying it's going to do it, but it's like just like yourself that was here before, or myself. Send it back to staff. You ask a question, staff sends it back to us, and it's for us to make the decision. And you know what? Yeah, we utilize staff's time, but we've done that in the past, and we've done that. We've just been doing this for Above Bridge since 2013 as well, right? So that's what with the nature of the beast, and that's what we do. So.
So if you want to build a paradise, tear it down, construct a new one.
Oh, we have a nice structure that's getting built right now, but we were just asking some, and I will say from more, for and frontmost that I was one to wanting those answers too, right? So if you want to point the finger, you can point it at me.
I'm not pointing the finger, I'm just saying, do some more reading, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else would like to request items on the agenda? Yep, come forward. Can someone, Chris, can you just give maybe Mr. Wiley the microphone there, if that's possible?
Thank you. I don't know if I need that or not. Can you hear me without it? Oh, I see. Okay, great.
Just state your name and your address for the record.
Yeah, my name's Paul Wiley, Mayor, Chair, Councilors. Again, name's Paul Wiley, a resident on South Quincy Road 8, which is a major concern for me with traffic. I believe Councilor Trombetta has a couple of emails from other
Correct, yes.
other residents, Dr. Bender and a couple other people. It's horrendous. As you can see, I'm in a wheelchair. Puttner been killed twice, just getting my mail from the mailbox. And I think, we have to do something, and I understand the issues earlier, I'm listening to what the problems are with policing and et cetera. I understand, they're under budget restraints, as was mentioned. But for the meantime, in the interim, there's got to be something we can do. Reduce the speed limit, slow them down that way. At least, it's a 70-kilometer speed limit now, and they're easily doing 100. So if we maybe reduced it to 60, they would only do 90. I don't know. It seems to be the case. And I'm not Lily White either. I understand, but it's a shortcut to around town. It's a thoroughfare to Dunville. And it's still an old-time road with new-time traffic. Something has to be done. Can we look at reducing the speed? Can we put up a sign? The flashing signs, I see them a lot of other places. It's, mentions what their speed is. So, we seriously need to have to do something, and something's got to be done immediately, and then progressively move forward with that. And maybe we can, I don't know. You guys are the experts, but you got to come up with something. Okay?
Great.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions for Ms. Welk, Mayor Bosler?
Well, I appreciate the compliment, but it's untrue. We're not actually the experts, so we defer these things to the staff and to the engineers that do design roads, and they do the traffic studies and such, which is what we will do. It's basically bad policy when councilors start making those types of decisions, because as I noted earlier, we're not actually the experts. We're picked from the rank and file of our community. We are, we go to the staff to get the discussions. I can 100% appreciate, I know the road, I can only imagine it's one of those little shortcut roads, or it's a little connector road is what it is. And we will, the first thing we're going to do is let Rom, we talked about Staff Sergeant Rom Diagidio, we're going to let him know that it's a concern. A lot of the times, the challenge is it's not necessarily the posted speed limit that's the problem, but it's the enforcement of it, or the fact that people are escaping. So we'll highlight that to him. Enforcement's unfortunately the key. If it's a 50, people can still go 100. And if it's 40, people can still go 100. And if it's 30, people still go 100. We have this mentality that just reducing it solves the problem. And it doesn't always solve the problem. And that's why we don't necessarily make the decision here, but we have experts who know how. They got the psychology of drivers, and they've got the condition of the road and all these kinds of things that they factor in. But like I said, we're gonna act on it. One of the things that we do is, we enforce as best as we can. And I can appreciate your situation in particular. Maybe we'll look further to address kind of a local issue or a local need that may be more appropriate or be a factor in what the experts tell us needs to happen to that road. And so that's, I hope, sufficient at this point.
Well, you mentioned psychology of it, and I disagree with you. If it's 50, they can still do 100. You're right at that, but the psychology, as you mentioned, of it is, if it is 50, they're not going to do 100. They're going to try and keep within that 20. It seems to be a 20K over the limit buffer that they drive.
Yeah.
So, back to, like you said, the psychology of it. Maybe if we dropped it to 60, then that would have some effect, right? So, I mean, it's a simple fix for the time being. It's not costly. It's not a big deal, and it would slow them down. Like, perfect example is the Grimsby Station 2. Everybody knows there's always a police officer possibly sitting there.
There's the key,
Possibly.
yeah.
They policed it hard for a long time. Now there's not that often you see a car there, but you still slow down, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, that's the way to go, I think. Anyhow, thank you, Chair.
Yeah,
Yeah, I am.
I'm not 100% sure which member of staff to direct this question to, but we'd have statistics on the flashing signs. I know just a long time ago when I was in school, we did case studies, and one of the things we covered was the surprising effectiveness of those speed signs. And I just wonder, because we do have one coming into Smithville, I think that would be a regional one, if I'm not, but do we have any data on the signs ourselves that we could speak to?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can tell you that the signs are temporary. They don't last. The effect they have are very temporary. And that's why if you read traffic manuals, signs like that are considered temporary and should only be used temporarily because they lose their effect. You get used to them. What the length of that, I would have to read up on some of the studies, but I'm going to say a month to 2 would be excessive to have them out for that long. I know the region has them in certain locations. Mud Street is one, but if you read the studies, their effectiveness wears off quickly.
Through the chair, are they cost effective for that short period of time?
Through Mr. Chair, they're very expensive. They are expensive, but that doesn't mean we don't use them. We do use them. We do have them. We do have our own set that we rotate around, and that's the reason why we rotate them, because they're not effective to stay permanent. So we rotate them on usually complaint basis, and we've already had those signs up on South Grimsby 8 before because we've received complaints. I believe right now they're on 20 Road. It's another main route that traffic likes to use. And we're better off putting them back on South Grimsby 8, say once a year, as opposed to keeping them there, and definitely would have more of an effect.
Thank you. I don't remember seeing them on South Grimsby Road 8, but possibly, I guess they were. Anyways, thank you.
Any more comments or questions? I just have one. To Steve, to do our usual study to, review speed limits and all that kind of stuff, what's the process for that? We want to, if there's certain sections to make them slow down, like, I know as you get closer to Highway 20 or, break it, I don't know, is all South Grimsby Road all 70, and then maybe as it gets closer, maybe we can get those cluster homes and break the speed, like, what do we do when we want to investigate that scenario? What is our method?
So you do a speed study. We would have a contractor go out, whatever method they use, whether it's hoses across the road, they can put units on poles to count the traffic, and it would test the speed. I know you're not going to like to hear this, but there's plenty of studies out there that prove and show that reducing the speed limit does not actually reduce the speed of the drivers. It is actually exactly what the mayor said. Subconsciously, you will drive to the condition of the road. If you're on a rural road and it's wide open, whether it's 70 or 60, you're probably going to drive what your brain's comfortable at. And that's what those studies are based on. So it's a proven fact that there's many studies out there. If you take an 80-kilometer-an-hour road that has a speed problem and reduce it to 70, it actually doesn't affect the speed of the actual traffic. It will make very, very minimal difference.
And I agree with both sides here. I do believe police presence is the issue, right? And there's not just this road, there's multiple roads, especially, I live in the far west end of the town, and, up there's,
Thank you. Just through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. McGeen, there are two portions of South Grimsby Road 8 that are problematic, and I know that I have seen the flashing thing between Mud Street and Regional Road 20. Mr. Wiley lives on the next chunk of it going the other way, and so that might be the difference. I'm wondering, he lives on the portion that would go from the old Highway 20 towards 20 Road, and that is a real cutting through area that many, many people use. I'm not sure if we've ever put it there, but you would perhaps know. And if we haven't,
I
maybe
believe
that's something that we
so,
can think.
but we can absolutely put it there again.
Okay,
We're-
because
we're
I know the
obviously-
Mud Street to the highway was a huge issue, and I know that it has been there in the past. I've seen it myself, but I'm not sure about the other end, which is what I wondered if that was a little bit of disconnect there.
Yeah, we can definitely place that there,
Okay, thank you.
sure, our next location.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To Mr. McGeen again, do you know if the town owns any non-permanent speed bumps?
No.
And do you have any studies that would support one way or another, like their effectiveness, even on a short-term scale? Sorry to put you on the spot here. I know
No,
this
it's
is coming
okay.
out of the
Through you,
blue here.
Mr. Chair, I'm involved in some working groups where they've had some minor success and some major difficulties with it. They're temporary as well. You can't have them in winter because the snowplows rip them out. You get a lot of damage claims that will come in. People that live on those roads and have to continuously drive over them will blame you for all their repair needs for their cars. The truth is, what generally happens, studies will show that from speed bump to speed bump, a lot of places, they don't place one, they'll always place two. They'll just speed between speed bump to speed bump, and once they get past the speed bump, they speed up fast again. They have actually been found to more incidents occur with them there than what they did prior to having them there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, farther to that, putting speed bumps on a rural road is not the answer. Like, that's just asking for a problem with who knows what happening, right? So that's in a subdivision, yeah, where people are should be doing 50, they're doing 70 with kids around, but like, this is something where we need the police to, hey, there's an issue here, let's sit here for a while. And people will start slowing down. I travel that road too, and it's amazing how many people, you look in the mirror and it's like, I'm doing 80. Really? You're pushing me? So they just need to get taught, you need not to speed here. You'll get busted. And just, that's what we gotta do. We gotta get police out on these rural roads where there is issues. And they're everywhere. 16 Road too, right?
Yes, Chair. I agree 100%. We have to police it, but I also think if you reduce that speed limit, and now you get a few people with a couple stiff fines, they're really gonna pay attention. And it doesn't have to be the whole road, just even sections where the housing is. Get them to slow down, police it, and then the message will get across. That's my opinion. Yes. Sorry, it was ill-prepared.
No, you did great. Thank you. Anybody else wanting to request any items on the agenda? I seeing none, we'll move on. There's no consent agenda items, there's no communications. We'll move on to rate staff reports. PW 0119, CAO Bev Hendry, information report, RFD PW 01 2019, West Lincoln Community Center and Arena decommissioning review. The recommendation that the report, RFI PW 01 2019, regarded West Lincoln Community Care Center and Arena decommissioning review dated January 21st, 2018, be received for information. I need a mover. Mayor Bylsma, Councillor Riley. Questions or comments? Mayor Bylsma.
Thank you very much. There was some comments made earlier and that I would like to address at this time, and also just kind of give a few kind of opening comments. The first being that, you know, we're a new term, new council, so there's some fresh ideas around the table. Democracy has had its chance to run its course in between when we dealt with this last and this time, and a lot of things changed. And so I was curious to know and understand the whole concept of the decommissioning of the arena. Now, we had talked, much of the report that we originally had was with respect to taking that structure and converting it or repairing it as an arena. And what we did not have was the information regarding keeping it as a building and a viable facility for the purposes of the public to use as a recreational facility. The thought process that I had in mind was a turf dome, and that was mentioned earlier that they are popular. They are actually quite profitable. Many of the turf domes and recreational facilities of that nature are owned by private organizations simply because they are in that range of profitability. Arenas, very rare that you'll find an arena, a civic arena that is owned privately, because generally speaking they are considered a loss, financial loss, and communities do this out of the, you know, kind of that social goodwill, that they're heavily subsidized. But turf domes do have a reputation for being marginally profitable. So sometimes there's a particular individual with a good heart and a kind of a generous spirit who latch onto these things and they can make a profitable venture. I was hoping, and I wanted to engage in a bit of a public dialogue to see if there was such an individual in our community who may decide to put together a business plan and see if a viable option for the existing arena, the original arena, could function as a recreational facility. It's tucked very neatly in the corner of the grounds, and it is well, it's not cost effective, as we determined in the previous council, to repair as an arena. The simple fact that the Ball Construction was looking at selling the beams means that the beams are strong enough to be repurposed again. So their plan was to dismantle the current arena and sell parts of it for another purpose. They're going to take those the structural members into their inventory and look at making some money on those. So that tells me that structurally that the roof can hold the loads that it holds, and it's not going to collapse or anything like that, because those beams are in fine condition. Now, that doesn't mean that the whole building is in perfect condition. Of course, it would have to be renovated, and chunks of it, as we see in the thing, have to be brought up to certain codes. There's certain things that are grandfathered, other things that are non-negotiable and have to be brought up to code. But we didn't have that information, so some of this is newer information in terms of the way that it's packaged. Having said that, I think it would be unfortunate if we let things go without revisiting them. This is, like I said, new term, new council, and if there was a way and there was an appetite to repurpose the facility and make it useful, we could have something in our municipality that very few of the surrounding municipalities even have. We would now have to go all the way to Ancaster. To the best of my knowledge, Ancaster, I think there might be something in downtown Hamilton, but at least to Ancaster before we get to another turf dome. Yet they're becoming increasingly popular, and here we have a structure that would be very suitable for. There's indoor frisbee, indoor soccer, and indoor football. All kinds of neat games, neat arrangements. Sky's the limit. It's a Four Seasons building. It would be able to use such a facility for 4 seasons, so it's not just confined to winter seasons. And of course, it would need the power plant and the cooling plant that's necessary. So I put it, we did some exploration. The CAO has come back with fulsome discussion about this, and so I just kind of, as a, I appreciate the information. I know that if I was the sole decision maker in this municipality, which I'm not, and there's good reasons for that, and good. But if I was, I would seriously consider repurposing this for that use and making it available to our public. And this is something that I think would differentiate us in the west end of Niagara. We would get, I'm confident we would get people from Fonthill and Grimsby and Lincoln coming up to use this facility for that purposes if it was available. But again, there has to be an appetite for that, and if there's not, then it will go the way of the dodo, just like the dodos did.
Councilor Cody?
Sure. Mr. Treble, that section of the property is earmarked for a drainage pond, is it not? Like, there's no other possible, like, to remove that building and put another structure there, we would be eliminating a drainage pond we can't put anywhere else. Is that not correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is one of the issues that's identified in the report as something that we haven't fully explored. We'd have to get an engineer involved to figure out if there is an alternate way to accommodate that 1 in 100 year storm event that was designed to be in that area. So we don't have an answer to that tonight. The plan as approved does show the building removed and that storm pond in that area. That's correct.
Anything further?
Thank you.
Mr.
I
Spoo?
apologize, I forgot to go through the chair.
Any other questions or comments? Anyone? Councilor Canan?
Okay, I think there are more issues. I think in a perfect world, if we had a lot of money, that maybe that's an ideal thing. But when this report came back, and at the very onset, the top of it, in the overview, it tells us that it would take $2.7 million to bring the building to building and fire code compliance. And that's not making it into another arena. That's just making it suitable. That's putting a new roof on, that's looking at all the cinder block structure, that's looking at the electrical, that's looking at plumbing, that's looking at when I say plumbing, it's looking at accessible washrooms that we don't have there. And there's so much more. And so that would bring it to building and fire code compliance, and that doesn't do anything. They're not even looking at what additional money it would take to actually clear that floor, take out all that old stuff and put in some kind of turf. So I think if we had a lot of money or somebody willed us some multi-millions, when we've been having, in the last part of this evening, talking about roads and bridges and whatever, I think this is way more money. I know that the amount that it would save off the contract was tossed around at $150,000 or whatever. Well, if we just, save that and put that into this new building, maybe we'd have something we can use. I was really astounded at the value of the dollar that came back to just bring it to compliance with our, fire code being looked at and the building code being looked at, plus the report, which shows, photo after photo after photo. I know that I briefly brought the issue at the last meeting of the separation from the upper floor to to the other part of the building that had happened years ago and it had to be fixed. I didn't know then about the flooring, although I know many years ago when that was new, when they would have dances on it, that floor would, already was rippling as there were large groups of people there. So the logic of it tells me that this is not something that we can afford to investigate any further. The dream part of it speaks to that, and that sounds fine. My suspicions were that it was going to cost us a great deal of money to break the contract, and that's why I didn't vote for looking at this and moving this forward at the time. This doesn't even mention what it might cost us to break the contract, if it costs us anything, and already it's well over anything I imagined. So I think the dream has ended here, perhaps, and there's not much more that we can do.
Thank you, Councilor Canan. Councilor Riley?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just to echo Councillor Ganane, is I didn't, when I read the 2.7 million, I have to admit, I kind of took a back seat there. I expected it to be high, but that was just to bring it to, to acceptable levels, not even, the extras that would be required to attract that kind of business. At the same time, if we had somebody already standing willing to invest into it, I think it'd be an easier decision. But that being the case, at this point, we'd be gambling. My biggest concern, even now, moving forward, is the effect that it could have with our, I guess, not knowing where the 100-year water drainage system would go. And I think at this point, we need to focus on what we currently have there and not potentially creating a potential financial liability as well as a structural liability for a $23 million building that we already have in the works. We've already, this council, not this council, but previous councils had to deal with. So I think we need to kind of put our focus towards the future there. Unfortunately, I would say that I don't know, the math just, I don't think is in our favor for that. I think it's a shame because I agree with you. I think it would make our municipality very unique to be able to offer that. But at the same time, I don't think it's fiscally responsible of us to go and take that gamble without having those certainties or guarantees. So, anyways, I just wanted to put that on the record there. Thank you.
Bosma?
I think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding, and I just want to address this. If we had proceeded without looking into this, there always would have been an opportunity, shoulda, woulda, coulda, or we would have had maybe a group of constituents, citizens who said, it's such a shame, we could have repurposed that building. It didn't cost us anything, any great amount to have staff recompile the components and put it together in a report. Most of the information was gleaned from the reports, as were mentioned, that already existed. And we've had the discussion. So in the open, in public, for everybody to view, it's on the cameras, so that we can make a good and wise decision and turn the page on it. I think that was sometimes what I felt was lacking in a previous term. Some of the discussion wasn't necessarily out in the open, or at least maybe the perception was that it wasn't out in the open. And so by bringing it forward, we've had the discussion, and we're all going to make a decision. And I was unfamiliar with the numbers as well, and I think that like anything else, if there's a will, there's a way. There was a will to explore a $24 million facility, and that did go through. So, larger things have happened. So I just wanted to make sure that we had the fulsome discussion, that we had full disclosure, and if it's the will of the council, as I'm sensing that it is, we can put this thing to rest, and then we know full well that at least we engaged it one last time and gave the public the opportunity to explore this alongside us, and all's good.
Thank you for those comments, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Riley, I got Councillor Ganane first, and then you after. Go ahead, Councillor Ganane.
Thank you. I would just say further to what the mayor has just said, I was approached during the election and then again by several people after the election, in fact, as late as November, asking the very thing. Can we save the arena? Can we still use it? Can we still have the upstairs hall? So I am very much aware that that was public discussion. And so I think the fact, you're absolutely correct, in that we can now say that the one advantage of having had this discussion is that we now know an up-to-date 2019 figure as to what it would cost if we were to try to do that, without even looking at repurposing it, just, in terms of the dollars to repurpose it, just looking at to bring it to code. And so, you're right. The public now will be able to know what the numbers are, will be able to know that it's been discussed, and I think that's valuable in itself. So That's the beauty of this discussion tonight, so thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Riley?
Just lastly, through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Billsma, Mayor Billsma, I just want you to know that, like, I at no point I regret being part of that reconsideration. I think that's important that, you know, with this council here, that we ask those questions and we get that confirmation. So I hope that at no point you feel that that my statements in any way, shape, or form were needing to be like it's a bad idea, you know, and even like what Councilor Ganan even said, you know, in an ideal situation, if we maybe didn't have a $24 million facility on the books already, and this was something that we were just looking for a future process, we would, you know, I think it'd be a lot easier to consider it than what we currently have presented to us. So anyways, I just wanted to mention, I didn't come across wrong. I just want you to know I'm never afraid to consider something. So we
Thanks.
considered it.
Councillor Cody? Yeah.
Yeah, just lastly, I think the report did a great thing for all of us here. There's a lot of people who part of our platform was fiscal responsibility, and I think now we can sit here and make a decision that's fiscally responsible.
Thank you. I got a few comments on this. Yeah, we brought it back to staff because that's what we do. We put our heads together and we go back to staff, just like council in the past came in here and we brought things back to staff and we waited for staff to come back and give us actual hard numbers, and that's the proper practice that we've always done. You know, even myself, I thought it was as easy as just saying, hey, don't do this part of the contract, give us that back, let's move a private person in there. I didn't expect it to come back at that price that it did, but without staff's direction, I wouldn't have learned that. My thoughts were, okay, maybe we can get a credit by not taking down that building, and we can move an independent, or we can use that for a soccer dome, and you know, we can save a little bit of the contract. But obviously, without staff's help, or without sending back this to staff, I wouldn't have known it was going to cost us $2.7 million. Plus, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, which I'm hearing. So, for that reason is why we sent it back to staff, so at least myself can know that this is what I'm up against. It was good on staff's part, informing us on this. It's worth a shot, but hey, you know, if without us knowing, we would have never known. And I think it's important that we got that information. And again, we can consider this myself a dead issue now, and we can move forward from this and continue with the project that we have ongoing at the moment. If there's no other comments, I guess I will call the vote. All to receive this only for information. All those in favor? And that carries. Thanks, everyone. We'll move on to item PW0219. Director in Planning and Building, Brian Treble, report number PD00219, road allowance transfer, Mary lots 24 and 25, concession 4, former Township of Gainsborough, Township of West Lincoln. The recommendation that the planning staff report PD002-19 regarding road allowance transfer to Mrs. Mary Evelyn Comfort between lots 24 and 25, concession 4, former Township of Gainsborough, Township of West Lincoln, dated January 21st, 2019, be received, and, bear with me, it's quite a bit, that the portion of the road allowance north 1/4 of road allowance between lots 24 and 25 as shown on the attached number 1, former Township of Gainsborough, now the Township of West Lincoln, be and hereby declared surplus and is approved for the transfer to the owner of part lot 25, concession 4, the property owner, Mrs. Mary Evelyn Comfort, subject to the following conditions. A, that the lands be surveyed at the expense of the property owner, and that a bylaw be passed authorizing the transfer of the north 1/4 of the road allowance between lots 24 and 25, concession 4, more specifically being part X on reference plan R 30RXX, future legal description to be provided to the property owner of part lot 25, concession 4, being the owner of approximately 37 acres of land, see attachment 3, and that the transfer of part of the former road allowance to the lands owned by the property owner be conditional on the parcels being merged in the title and the property identification number pins for the effective lands be consolidated, and that the property owner provide an undertaking that the pins will be consolidated once the conveyance is completed, and provide satisfactory evidence of the consolidation to the township, and that all legal administration and otherwise associated costs be paid by the applicant and property owner. That notwithstanding the provision of the township bylaws 9531 and the policy of closing, declaring surplus and selling a highway or portion thereof, that the requirement for the appraisal and the requirement for the public notice be and hereby waived due to the fact that the subject road allowance was stopped up and closed by bylaw and should have been conveyed to the abutting landowner in 1921, and that Mrs. Evelyn Comfort, through her legal counsel, can be provided and a copy of staff report number PD 002-19. Thank you, Brian, for summing that up so quickly for me. I need a mover and a seconder. Mayor Bosma, Councilor Gannon, comments or questions? Sure, Councilor Riley.
So I was just, because this is, if I'm understanding this correctly, that we're gonna have to close part of the road? Is that what I'm?
No, if you want, you can, Director Trouble can
So,
answer those questions
to
for
you,
you.
Mr. Chair. What implications does this put, I guess, the municipality in, if any?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Really, this one's a pretty straightforward application in the sense that it was never opened as a road.
Okay.
In fact, in 1921, the bylaw was passed to physically close it so that it should have taken it off our books. And 3/4 of the road was closed and sold. But that last remaining 1/4, for whatever reason, was never conveyed to Mr. Lampman. Mr. Lampman is now Ms. Comfort, and they've caught this through, I think there must be some form of conveyance transaction happening. Anyway, so there's really, I don't think, any liability to us for doing this. In fact, we're resolving a commitment we made almost 100 years ago by completing this piece of the puzzle. So I think this one's reasonably straightforward.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that carries. Item PW 0319, Planner 2, Madison Etzel, Director of Planning and Building, Brian Trouble, report number PD 02019. Recommendation report, permanently close and sell the portion of the road allowance known municipally as being between lots 17 and 18 in concession 8, former township of Grimsby, now the township of West Lincoln, west of property owned by 517604 Ontario Inc., Dave Goldenberg, Alden Equipment. A recommendation that planning staff report PD 02019 regarding road allowance transfer to Mr. Dave Goldenberg between lots 17 and 18, concession 8, former township of South Grimsby, now the township of West Lincoln, dated January 21st, 2019, be received, and that the planning staff and clerk be authorized to contact the affected property owners along this entire stretch of road allowance between lots 17 and 18, concession 8, from Regional Road 20 to Yonge Street, who would have the ability to gain more lands as a result of this process. And that staff be authorized to contact all required agencies as per the road closing and the conveyance policy, and that staff be authorized to obtain quotes for an appraisal for the entire road allowance between lots 17 and 18, concession 8, former township of South Grimsby, now the township of West Lincoln, and report back to a future committee and council meetings, and that staff be authorized to obtain quotes for a legal survey for the subjected lands and report back to a future committee and council meetings, and that staff be authorized to use applicants' initial deposit and administration fees as needed as per the road closing conveyance policy, and that the total cost shall be divided among all properties such as full reimbursement to the township of West Lincoln ultimately occurs, and that report number PD 02019 be provided to the owner of Alden Equipment in order to advise Dave Goldenberg of a larger road closing process. I need a mover and a seconder. Councilor Gannon, Councilor Cody. Questions or comments? All those in favor? And that carries. One more here. Planner Garrett Borma, I get this Borma, the Director of Planning and Building, Brian Trouble, report number PD 011-19, recommendation report, Bristol Motors, John Cadman, application for road closing part of the original South Grimsby Road 10 allowance, file number 4000178, the report PD 011-19 regarding Bristol Motors, John Camden, application for road closing part of original South Grimsby Road 10 allowance, file number 401008078, dated January 21st, 2019, be received, and that planning staff and clerks staff be authorized to work with the region and contact the appropriate ministry of the province of Ontario to begin and process a disposal of surplus lands with conveyance to region and the township. And that planning staff and clerks be authorized to contact the affected property owners along South Grimsby Road 10 who could have the ability to gain more land as a result of this process, and that a future report be prepared and presented to the Township Public Works Committee once more information is received from the affected neighbors and the province, which more fully informs the process and next steps. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Riley, Councillor Jonker. Questions or comments? Councillor Mayor Bosma.
Thank you. Through you to Director Treble. This one looks very odd, and so I'm wondering kind of what happened here. It looks like there's three parts. There's an original road allowance, there's a short new road allowance, and there's something called provincial lands, and I was just wondering what the deal is with this and how that all how that one came to unfold.
I'll give you my theory through you, Mr. Chair, but I may not have the facts fully absorbed properly here. But what appears to have been the case on the original plans when these townships were laid out almost 200 years ago, South Grimsby Township had a road that projected straight south from the road that's on the north side of the highway. So it went straight south, and it would go through C-Card Trailers and Ravensburg
Greenhouse, yeah.
if you went straight south. That wasn't what they built, though. They built the road that came from Caister across 20 Mile Creek and went north. So the road was built from south to north, I believe, and did not intersect properly with the road on the north side. So when the province was still the owner of the highway, they came along and said, this offsetting intersection's a bad idea, let's move it. So what they did was they relocated from what's called a given road, the one they projected north, to the actual road allowance, but then never conveyed anything back to anybody. So the actual width of the road allowance on the south side is like 160 feet wide when it would normally be 66 or thereabouts. So the proposal is that we have extra lands that we could convey. The problem is the province was the one that sort of pieced this all together, and they still own a chunk in the middle. And we have to work with the province to get that conveyance back. The reason I want to work with the region is to argue that when the downloading of Highway 20, if I can call it that, occurred, that all of the lands related to Highway 20 should have gone to the region, but they did not. The person we've reached out to at the province is so far saying, this is a piece of township-owned land, not road, and it's worth money. We want money. And I'm hoping that there's a way around this where we can basically get it conveyed for road purposes and then sort it out that way. So I think the region's involvement is key to assist with that piece.
Thank you.
Okay, and just kind of further to that, if we can't get the region/province to move on this, it would be that section that's floating across the front lawns of the houses on the east side of that road, that long section. Some of that would be surveyed and could possibly revert back to those property owners. At the very least, we should kind of dump our portion of it, and if we can't get the region, they've been holding it forever anyways. They're closer to the road, so I think it would be totally appropriate for us to just, in the final analysis, if we can't get them to budge, at least dump our portion of it.
Go ahead, Mr. Trouble.
I follow the thinking, but there's a complication in there, if I may, Mr. Chair. I think council was given under separate cover a legal opinion which had a drawing attached to it, and I'm hoping the drawing actually had colors on it. We own the pink, so it is actually identified as road, and we own the green, so it is identified as road. But if the province is saying that the yellow is not technically road and that's what they own, to close and convey the pink means that properties, those two houses, don't actually touch a public road. So we need to sort this out because we really can't close and convey the pink if that's the only public road they actually touch. So we have to sort that out, I think, before we can actually proceed. I follow the thinking, and it's not far off my own, but it's complicated.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, Mayor Bob?
Nope, I'm good.
I guess got, just a comment, it's not really a question regarding to this. I think, and I've said it to members of staff before, I think we need to look at all of our unassumed road allowances. You know, there's a few of them out there, I'm not saying all of them, but I think some of them, I don't disagree, I think some of them, you know, are a burden on the municipality, a burden on some of the tax dollars. And I'll be frank, I know the one out by me is Burns Road. I think that portion has been with us for a long time. And, you know, we've wasted a lot of staff time in garbage dumps, car fires, you know, trying to keep it closed and people coming by with their Jeep rallies and opening it up and driving down. You know, maybe this is something we can, in the future, look as council, maybe, you know, selling some of these road allowances off that are no longer needed by the township. Not all of them, because some of them are closed, and I still think some of them need to be in our inventory, because they might be opened up at a future date, but maybe way after my time, so I don't know. But there are some that do need to get looked at. You know, be correct, maybe Hodgkins Road over there in Ward 2 as well. Just some of these unassumed road allowances that are costing us taxpayers money for us to maintain them, pick up the garbage, close them, and so on and so forth, right? So, and you know, it's just food for thought. I think we should look into it later on in this term. But yeah, if you can maybe comment a little bit on that, Mr. Trouble.
Just a couple of thoughts through you, Mr. Chair. The staff have had differences of opinion over the years in terms of whether it's proactive to hold or proactive to sell. And you know, it depends partly on what the various factors are. The road allowance that we just talked about beside Mr. Goldenberg and extending straight north to Yonge Street, that is one where we've decided as staff that it's appropriate to look at closing the whole thing. There just doesn't seem to be a lot of future to the need for that road. And so, you know, there's a couple of factors that clearly would have to play in. One would be, do we foresee long-term need for that piece of road, as you've alluded to? Another factor we have to look at is whether there's landlocked parcels that we could have if we do close the road, because we have to make sure that every lot has public frontage if it's in existence now, that we need to keep that. Whether it's traveled or not might be a different story, but that does come into play on the odd occasion. For example, Hodgkins Road, I recall there being a parcel back there that we have to sort out.
So let's just use as an example purposes only, and this is because I know it's down the road from me, is Burns Road. And I've said in the past, it's been a road that people have used just as a Jeep off-roading road. Staffs had to go put logs out there. Staffs had to go put signs out there. Staffs had to go pick up garbage out there. You know, a certain road like that, I think to generate some revenue would be an idea to sell these or ask the farmers if they're interested in buying. And I'm just using that one as an example. I'm not saying we have to do this one specifically. I'm just saying there's multiple, and I don't know all of them in this municipality of these unassumed road allowances. You know, maybe it's time to maybe see if we can generate some revenue and get rid of them, but not all of them. I believe that some do need to still stay in our inventory, but I do believe some need to get out of our inventory. Mr. Trouble.
And just my final thought, if I can, I'm not sure generating revenue necessarily would occur through this process. It's sort of meant to be more of a cost recovery kind of
Same thing,
process.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Maybe save on Mr. McGee's time going out there because there's an abandoned car or someone's couch that you got to pick up on Monday morning because they've thrown it on that road, right, and left it there. Save some time there, which I'm quite sure you have in many of these unassumed road allowances, right, Mr. McGee?
Correct. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd also like to point out, not so much as Mr. Treble said, it's not a financial gain, but it's definitely an unloading of severe liability. In other municipalities where they've had four-wheel drivers, snowmobiles have fatalities, they've always gone back to the property owner, obviously, for lawsuits.
Oh, really?
And-
That's news.
And we are at serious risk of liability, and that's why we regularly patrol those unopened roads to make sure all the signage is up, to make sure the barricades are up, the delineators are up, because if anything does happen, it's our property, we're 100% on the hook.
Yeah.
So, in an effort for that, just eliminating that liability, I believe would be in the township's best interest.
Yep. Thank you. Councilor Riley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through Mr. Chair, like, so when you mention liability, is that, like, I don't know, I apologize, I'm not from that neck of the woods, but is that something like if it's already existing, will people still go there, and as someone who's out there that already owns a property attached, are they going to be willing to take that, knowing that that's a potential threat to them and their property? And maybe not so much a threat, but like, how do they even police, and what implication are we putting them in by taking that? Like, I guess I'm just asking, so I guess the question is, like, have we reached out to anybody other than, I guess, this one here? I don't even know if we've reached out to them or if they've come to us, but have we reached out to any of these other options yet to find out if anybody would be interested, or is this just kind of a conversation we're having to see if they would be?
Mr. Trevor?
To this point, through you, Mr. Chair, we've really just reacted to applications that have come forward. We can certainly do an inventory of the vacant roads or untraveled mud roads, whatever term you want to give them, that are out there, and take a look at it and maybe give some recommendations or thoughts to how to move forward and which ones to sort of identify as surplus, if I can call it that. We haven't really done any of that work to this point in time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for that update, both of you, so appreciate that. I see no more comments or questions. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that carries. Next item of business, I'm just going to step down. I'll let Vice Chair Councilor Jonker do this next item.
Yeah, other business, point 9 on the agenda A is item PW05-19, Councillor Jason Trombetta, regarding Grimsby Road, regarding South Grimsby Road 8 for discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Councilor Jonker. Yeah, I put this on the agenda, more or less. There was a couple issues on South Grimsby Road 8, and I wanted to get some information on it. One, obviously, what you heard tonight was the speed issues that we had. The other thing I wanted to look at was possibly, I know this came up, was an alternate truck route. And if you can, Mr. McGean, can you just explain why this is more or less a truck route and why, I've noticed I've been getting a lot of complaints about the heavy tractor trailers going down this road and so on and so forth. Why is that one chosen and so forth? If you can just expand on that, if you can, for me.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Chair, that road is in that area the most robust road that we have. I would dare not say that it was built to the standards of taking transport trucks, but no other road in that area is. Past projects on South Grimsby 6, which would be the closest one through the wind turbine project, there was significant damage done to the road there. So we have some background knowledge that that road is definitely not capable of carrying that type of traffic. South Grimsby Road 8 has been taking that type of traffic and has withheld pretty good. Our maintenance on that road is fairly minimal, which tells me that it's holding up to that traffic. To go any other, it's obviously anyone that lives in the area knows that it's a major throughway to get from the top to the bottom end of our municipality. Any other road would be a significant detour. Your next option is going west is very far. Going east, you're looking at going through town, and I would definitely not recommend directing traffic to go through that route to put them through town.
Okay. So
Especially when our efforts right now are to keep the heavy traffic out of town.
So you're saying that just the road is structurally sound, to pretty much take the weight of obviously the triaxles and the tractor trailers, right? Where South Grimsby Road 6 is more or less a tar and chip road, and South Grimsby Road 8 is an asphalt road. Am I correct on that, or?
It's a mix. It's tar and chip and asphalt. In that section, I would say it's predominantly tar and chip. But as the past shows, that road has held up, and that road is used basically as a truck traffic route. And like I said, the maintenance on that road is very minimal. The maintenance on South Grimsby 6, I don't know exactly, but I'm going to say it's at least triple the amount of maintenance that we perform on that road as opposed to South Grimsby 8, already taking that truck traffic. So to divert them, we would have to divert the traffic so far if we tried to establish a truck route, and our roads just are not built for that. So it would be a substantial cost to upgrade any road that we chose to direct as a
Okay,
traffic,
all right.
truck traffic route.
Perfect, and thank you for that update, Mr. McGee.
Welcome.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to say. I don't know if anyone else had any comments or questions on South Grimsby Road 8, but that's all I wanted to just clarify that issue there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we'll go to PW 0619, members of council, any business of an informative nature, anything you want to comment on? Everyone, I guess, stood warm this weekend and shoveled, backs are all intact from shoveling and plowing. I think everybody's still good, right? Mayor Belsma, you're grabbing your back there, is it? Oh.
No, the chair is worse.
Oh, okay. So I guess there's no other new items of business. I know we are headed into confidential. I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. Appreciate you coming out. And we are going to go into confidential. Item PW 0719, Clerk Joanne Shimmy, Personal Matter Director of Public Works, Recreation, and Identifiable Individual. Acceptable closed session exemptions, personal matters about an unidentifiable, I don't know, sorry, it's all Mr. Trouble's big reports that he gave me. I've lost the luster on my tongue here. So an unidentifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. No. No, I need a mover. Moved by Mr. Mayor, seconded by Councilor Riley. We are now in, oh, let's take a vote first, sorry. And that carries, and we are now in closed session. I figured we were going anyways. I know. You have to do it.